Okay, magandang umaga po sa lahat. Isang maganda at makakalikasang umaga po again sa ating lahat. So welcome to NAMRIA's webinar on Geoportal Philippines, making geospatial information for disasters available and accessible. So ito pong activity na ito ay part po ng NAMRIA's observance for this year's National Disaster Resilience Month. Okay, I am Andrew Ramos, and I get from the Geospatial Information System Management branch of NAMRIA, and I get the lovely task of hosting this webinar and facilitating the discussions thereafter. Okay, so of course, before we start no, sa aking mga colleagues na kasama ko ngayon via Zoom, please ensure po na yung mga microphones po natin ay naka-mute para po ma-avoid natin yung any audio feedback. And of course, sa ating mga participants kanina, tinitingnan ko na marami talaga tayong participants and I'm really happy that I think the whole Philippines is almost represented here in our webinar today. So talagang kita-kita natin yung participation and talagang yung interest ng ating mga kababayan sa buong Pilipinas in achieving disaster resiliency. So again, sa mga participants po natin sa buong Pilipinas, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. I'm actually seeing here some of the LGUs from Ormoc, Panabo in Davao del Norte, Parañaque, Dingalan, Gabaldon, Dinalupihan, and Burgos from Ilocos Norte. And we also have national government agencies, participants from our NGAs. Nandyan yung NEDA from the Cordillera Administrative Region, and the DNR siguro ito yung PENRO from Bohol, no? And then yung may private sector participants din tayo. So again, magandang umaga po sa lahat. And para po sa ating mga participants, of course, I'm sure some of you will have questions later on sa ating mga presentation. And then maaari po magkakaroon po tayo ng ample time to answer your questions during the open forum na magaganap po later on. Okay, so meron po I believe tayong chat box sa YouTube. Makikita po nyo yun sa yung YouTube account. And I feel like may mga nagchat-chat na nga po ngayon. So pwede nyo pong i-type yung mga questions nyo po dati sa ating YouTube account. Okay? Okay, so but before we start our discussions, of course, it is but proper that we start our day with a prayer.
A prayer on climate change. Loving God, we thank you for our planet Earth, which is our home. It has evolved over millions of years. It continues to be a source of life and a place that holds all our lives together. Today, though, our planet is under threat from pollution, climate change, and increasing carbon dioxide levels. As our planet heats up, the cycles of life are out of balance and under threat. We pray that our world political leaders will continue to make good decisions that will impact our future for the better. We pray for a world that will not be threatened by a changing climate that chokes our atmosphere. We pray for a world where the poorest and most vulnerable can live their lives fairly and with hope. We pray that this wonderful planet will be in a much better shape for future generations to come. We pray for a team effort, not just at global level, but also in our own local community and parish. And finally, help us all to be the difference. Help us to know that every small and tiny change in reducing our carbon footprint does in fact make a world of a difference. Amen.
Okay, so at this point, I would like to turn over now our virtual floor to the Director of the Geospatial Information Systems Management Branch of NAMRIA, Director Febrina E. Damaso, for the opening remarks of today's program. So, Boss Febs, magandang umaga po sa inyo. Over to you po.
Thank you, Andrew. And medyo choppy. Hindi yata maganda yung connection. Hindi yata maganda yung connection. Medyo choppy. So, good morning, everyone. I'm happy to see all of you. So, on behalf of our administrator, Yusik Peter and Chanko, I'm very happy to welcome you all for today's webinar in line with the observance of this year's National Disaster Resilience Month. This is in pursuant to the Executive Order number 29. We are reminded the importance of understanding disaster risk, strengthening disaster risk governance, investing in risk reduction for resilience, enhancing preparedness for effective response, and implementing Build Back Better in rehabilitation and recovery. So ang ating theme for this year, for the observance, is Sambayanang Pilipino nagkakaisa tungo sa katatagan at maunlad na kinabukasan. Tama ba, Andrew? Ba yung pagkabaan ako? So with this, we are very happy to be part of the observance. No? And NAMRIA believes in the potential of or the importance of geospatial information to be the backbone of every sound planning and decision making when it comes to DRM. No? That's why our webinar today is entitled or focuses on Geoportal Philippines, making geospatial information for disasters available and accessible. So, kung makikita niyo, yung Geoportal Philippines is our online platform for making our geospatial information available to the public. Not only from NAMRIA, but other geospatial information shared by other national agencies. And one more thing is the goal of NAMRIA's making geospatial information available to all is also aligned with our vision of building a geospatially empowered Philippines. No? So maybe later on, the Geoportal will be presented to you. No? And hopefully, with this webinar, we will be enhancing or orienting you yung sa mga marunong na, enhancing your knowledge about geospatial information, the utilization of geospatial information in your own programs and projects. No? I think, Andrew, will have an open forum, so you may feel you are free to ask questions. So, medyo na-late na tayo without much further ado. Thank you. I would like to thank you all for attending this webinar. It's overwhelming. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Have a fruitful learning journey today. Thank you. Back to you, Andrew.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Boss Febs. No? So marami na akong narinig from Boss Febs na I think mas madidetail pa later on. No? So nabanggit nga ni Boss Febs na ang presentation natin ngayon is about the Geoportal Philippines. So ano nga ba yung Geoportal Philippines? Mamaya malalaman natin yan. And she also mentioned yung utilization din ng geospatial information, which I know is very important sa ating disaster risk reduction and management efforts, diba? So malalaman din natin yan mamaya. So kung paano ba ini-apply ang Geoportal Philippines sa disaster risk reduction and management efforts ng mga LGUs, ng national government agencies, and of course, the academe. Okay? And pero syempre bago yan lahat, no, gusto muna namin ipakilala sa inyo sino nga ba si NAMRIA? Ano ang ginagawa ni NAMRIA? Ano ang vision, mission, and goals ng NAMRIA? So NAMRIA is the National Mapping and Resource Information Authority. Kami po ang Central Mapping Agency of the Philippine government. Siyempre, I believe we have prepared an audio-visual presentation para po mas makilala pa natin at ano nga ba ang ginagawa at sino ang NAMRIA. So to our technical team, whenever you are ready po, here is the NAMRIA audio-visual presentation.
Maps are essential tools to help people locate objects, features, and events, and navigate their way on the surface of the Earth. Maps enable us to discover, know, and analyze our environment. Maps provide information to be used for planning, decision-making, operations, and governance. More than 80% of the information needed in everyday life deal with location or geography of people, places, things, and events. The National Mapping and Resource Information Authority, or NAMRIA, plays an important role in generating and managing maps and geospatial information. It is an agency of the Philippine government attached to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DENR. As the country's central mapping and geospatial information management agency, NAMRIA serves the needs of the line services of DENR, other government offices, and the general public. NAMRIA's mission is to provide quality topographic maps, nautical charts, and other geospatial products and services in a timely and coordinated manner. NAMRIA envisions itself to be a center of excellence, building a geospatially empowered Philippines where government, businesses, and individuals make full use of geospatial information in making important decisions and conducting their daily activities. NAMRIA has four core functions. NAMRIA produces topographic and derivative maps on various scales, in paper or digital forms. These are used as basic tools and references by the government for infrastructure and development planning, disaster risk reduction and management, environmental protection, and research and development. They are also used by the private sector in investment planning and exploration, by the academic and science communities in research activities, respectively, generally cover large areas for macro planning. Large-scale topographic maps of 1 to 10,000 and 1 to 4,000 scale or larger cover smaller areas but are more accurate and show more detail. NAMRIA likewise produces updated administrative maps in the form of provincial and regional maps. Pursuant to Executive Order Number 192, NAMRIA is mandated to establish and maintain the primary geodetic control network for all surveying and mapping in the country. It is in line with this mandate that the agency is undertaking the modernization of the Philippine Geodetic Reference System, or PGRS, as part of its vision of building a geospatially empowered Philippines. The modernization program is aligned with Resolution 266, adopted by the United Nations General Assembly during its 69th session, dated 26 February 2015, that recommends the adoption and active participation of member states in the definition of a Global Geodetic Reference Frame, or GGRF, for sustainable development. The program will upgrade the existing Philippine reference system of 1992 from a static and local system to a datum aligned with a GGRF that is in sync with real-world ground deformations and is managed and utilized by competent PGRS stakeholders. NAMRIA conducts hydrographic and physical oceanographic surveys and produces nautical charts like berthing, harbor, approach, coastal, general sailing, and overview charts covering the country's maritime jurisdictions. The agency also publishes predicted tide and current tables, coast pilot books, lists of lights, notices to mariners, and other nautical publications. Nautical charts and publications ensure safety in maritime navigation and provide basic information for the management of the maritime space and resources, as well as base data for climate change studies. Charts and hydrographic data are important in complying with the provisions of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea relative to the country's maritime entitlements. Likewise, the nautical publications are required under the Safety of Life at Sea Convention under the International Maritime Organization. NAMRIA is responsible for the survey and mapping of the country's terrestrial and maritime territories. It delineates the different maritime zones of the archipelago, including the exclusive economic zone and continental shelves. It spearheaded the successful defense in 2012 of the country's submission to the United Nations for an extended continental shelf in the Benham Rise region, now called Philippine Rise. It also provides technical support to various government agencies on matters pertaining to maritime boundary delimitation and law of the sea issues, as well as to the local government units in the delineation and delimitation of the 15-kilometer municipal water boundaries. NAMRIA conducts nationwide environment and natural resource assessment and mapping of various thematic geospatial information such as land cover, coastal resources, inundation of coastal low-lying areas at various sea level rise scenarios, tenorial instruments, and upland or forest land population, among others. These fundamental data sets serve as vital inputs to policy formulation, physical and developmental planning, provision of social services, disaster risk reduction and management, and climate change mitigation and adaptation studies on various levels. In addition, the agency continues to provide information on classification of lands of the public domain, as well as technical assistance to DENR in the final mapping and preparation of draft House bills, fixing the final forest limits of the country, including validation of the general location of areas under the National Integrated Protected Area System, among other mapping requirements. NAMRIA's geospatial information and management services include information system strategic planning, geospatial databasing, information and web system development, information and communications technology, resource and network management, geographic information systems or GIS project collaboration and technical assistance, GIS trainings, packaging of geospatial information products and services, stakeholder relations and partnership development, information, education, and communication and client services. NAMRIA also plays active roles and even acts as lead in local and international programs in the area of geospatial information management and services relevant to disaster risk reduction and management and climate change adaptation. NAMRIA spearheads the implementation of the National Spatial Data Infrastructure, or NSDI, which is designed to provide a mechanism for sharing of and access to geospatial information produced and maintained by the various stakeholders and custodians across the country. A major output of the NSDI is Geoportal Philippines. This application system, managed by NAMRIA, serves as a platform for online and open sharing of geospatial information. NAMRIA also assists other government agencies and the general public in disaster mapping. NAMRIA is one of the member agencies of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC. The agency collaborates with other government agencies in the production of multi-hazard maps and information, education, and communication campaigns in various local government units. NAMRIA also assists Congress in the crafting of priority bills on maritime zones, archipelagic sea lanes, land classification, comprehensive land use, and protected areas, among others. From its humble beginnings in 1987, NAMRIA has come a long way and stands firm in accomplishing its mandated tasks and responsibilities to its clients and stakeholders and to the goals of DENR. This is the National Mapping and Resource Information Authority, an agency helping to build a geospatially empowered Philippines. Welcome to NAMRIA.
So indeed, welcome po to NAMRIA. So sana sa ngayon po mas nakilala po natin ang National Mapping and Resource Information Authority. So nabanggit nga ni Boss Febs po kanina yung aming director na ito po ay activity. Itong webinar nito ay activity po ng NAMRIA for the National Disaster Resilience Month for this year. Pero ano nga ba yung National Disaster Resilience Month? So konting history lamang po ito pong observance natin ngayon for disaster resiliency in the Philippines was actually started with an Executive Order number 137 series of 1999. So back then po, ang yung observance po natin ay tinatawag natin National Disaster Consciousness Month. Pero later, na-rename mo ito by virtue of Executive Order number 29 series of 2017 to National Disaster Resilience Month. Okay? And syempre po, alam naman nating lahat na yung National Disaster Resilience Month ay ino-observe or sineselebrate po natin every month of July. Okay, so ito pong observance nito calls for all Filipinos to conduct activities relative to building disaster resilience, covering yung 4 po natin na thematic areas sa disaster resiliency. So ano-ano nga ba yung 4 na thematic areas? I'm sure kabisado na ito ng ating mga LGUs, pati na ating mga national government agencies, no? Ang 4 na thematic areas for disaster resiliency, as mentioned by Director Ferds earlier, ay disaster prevention and mitigation, disaster preparedness, disaster response, and disaster rehabilitation and recovery. So again, the 4 thematic areas for disaster resiliency are disaster prevention and mitigation, disaster preparedness, disaster response, and of course, disaster rehabilitation and recovery. So for this year's National Disaster Resilience Month, ang theme po natin ay Sambayan ng Pilipino, nagkakaisa tungo sa katatagan at maunlad na kinabukasan. Okay, so this year's observance emphasizes the importance para po sa ating lahat ng mga Pilipino para po ma-overcome natin yung mga challenges of this pandemic, and of course, to better prepare us for the new emerging disasters toward building a safer, adaptive, and of course, a resilient future for all. So iyan po yung theme natin for this year. And syempre dito po sa amin sa National Mapping and Resource Information Authority or NAMRIA, as the central mapping agency of the whole Philippine government, marami po kaming mga initiatives or efforts patungkol sa disaster resiliency. Iniisip ko nga kanina, we have a lot, but some of our landmark initiatives sa DRRM, of course, nabanggit nga doon sa video, is yung production ng risk maps. We also have the mapping of safe open spaces here in the Greater Metro Manila area. And of course, nabanggit nga na isa sa mga important projects ng aming ahensya ay ang Geoportal Philippines. So we are very, very fortunate because we have a competent resource speaker who will provide us with a backgrounder. Ano nga ba itong Geoportal Philippines? Ano yung functions ng Geoportal Philippines? At paano natin mai-apply yung web application na ito, which is Geoportal Philippines, with our work for disaster risk reduction and management. Okay? And our resource person is none other than Mr. Melvin O. Perez. So si Sir Melvin, isa po siyang Information System Analyst 3 from our Geospatial System Development Division of NAMRIA. So to our dear participants, I now give the floor to Mr. Melvin Perez. Sir Melvin, magandang umaga. Over to you po.
Thank you, Sir Andrew. So, isang mapagpala at sa ibang lugar siguro is makulimlim na umaga sa ating lahat. Share ko lang yung aking screen. Okay na po ba? Kita po ba? Yan. So again, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. So I'm joined today with my colleague, si Sir Aljerico A, na later ay mga sasagutin po sa ating magiging mga katanungan. So as mentioned, our webinar for today is entitled Geoportal Philippines, Making Geospatial Information for Disasters Available and Accessible. So hopefully by the end of the seminar or the webinar, we can now see or realize where we can find this data and where to access it. So, isang mga katanungan po kanina, so ano po ba yung Geoportal Philippines? So the Geoportal Philippines is an online platform for sharing of and access to geospatial information produced by NAMRIA and other government agencies, and access to such information by the general public. So as mentioned, it's a web mapping application available online. So kahit po sino makaka-access dito sa ating Geoportal Philippines. So currently, the Geoportal Philippines has 3,000 plus layers. So ito po yung mga data or information na makikita natin sa ating mga mata. So 50 plus of which is linked via WMS or hosted in other stakeholders servers. So currently, we have 84 stakeholder agencies. Ito po yung mga data providers na nag-share ng data natin sa portal. So out of the 84 stakeholder agencies or data providers, 59 of which already provided data to the portal. So we have this data sharing agreement executed between NAMRIA and stakeholder agencies, stating that the owner or the data owner shall be fully responsible for the quality of the geospatial data. And they will authorize NAMRIA to allow other agencies, other users and stakeholders to freely download, reuse, and share the agency geospatial data partly, fully, or in GIS machine readable format unless indicated in Annex A, which is they have the option to share the data as viewable only, can be downloaded in machine processable or shapefile format, or in image format. So data with no restriction can be downloaded directly to the portal based nga po sa data sharing agreement na finila pa ng ating stakeholder agency. So the Geoportal Philippines has several modules. Here are the sample screenshots. So we have the map viewer, which is the displays the geospatial information for easy visualization. So the user can perform basic navigation, filtering, simple geoprocessing like buffering and distance measuring, location search using keywords, or export the map. And again, this module is accessible to the general public. The next one is the map builder, which is the facility for uploading the spatial data. So this module is accessible to the stakeholder agencies or the data providers. Dito po nila i-upload o i-share yung mga kanilang spatial data for it to be accessible sa Geoportal Philippines. Now, we also have a collection of customized web mapping applications for Map App. So again, these are available to the general public. First, we have the COVID-19 Map App, which was developed in 2020 in coordination with DOH. So it provides the COVID-19 case information segregated by Yeah, it provides COVID-19 charts, the graphs and statistics disaggregated by health status, sex, age group, and location of licensed COVID-19 testing land use land map app, which displays the geospatial data related to land use, such as road network, zone classification, urban areas, growth centers, hazard maps, and other relevant maps on provincial or municipal level. It also displays the status of LGU submissions of CLUP to concerned agencies. Next is the Geoportal Philippines 3D map app, which projects a 2D feature on a 3D surface. It provides a 3D visualization of objects overlaid on top of the terrain elevation model of a particular area. We have the Lot Plotter Map app, which is a facility to plot online boundaries of land ownership based on technical descriptions. So anyone can use this and they can verify the shape of the lot and its relative location on the ground. Hello, check ko lang po, okay po ba ang audio natin? Okay naman. So next, we have the Map Composer map app, which allows the user to overlay or preview their local geospatial data using Geoportal base map. We also have the Road Net Map app, which displays all types of road network, whether it's national, provincial, or municipal road. It also includes farm to market roads. Next is the map app on Yolanda, or internationally known as Haiyan. It displays the multi-hazard and suitable safe areas covering areas na dinaanan Typhoon Yolanda. We also have the infrastructure status reporting map app, which provides the general public a facility to report on the status of public infrastructures like roads, bridges, schools, hospitals, etc. The tourism map app, which displays the layers and relevant information about tourist attractions, hotels and lodgings, resorts, and other major transport hubs from available sources. And last but not the least, we have the DRRM, or the Disaster Risk Reduction Management Map app, which displays the relevant information on natural and man-made hazards and government provisions for disaster risk reduction. And later, I will show you that it will also display or simulate the typhoon path na binigay po sa atin ng Pag-asa. So the Geoportal Philippines was officially launched on January 16, 2014 at the PICC. And it received the 2013 Future Gov Award for ICT. The Geoportal Philippines can be accessed using this URL, www.geoportal.gov.ph. And again, you can access this if you have sa cell phones or sa mga laptop computers. And you will be directed here sa ating Geoportal Philippines map viewer. So as I mentioned, we have collection of 3,000 plus layers from different government agencies, and you can preview it or show it dito sa ating mapa. You can also browse by agency para makita natin kung which agencies already provided data to the portal. So you can view the list here in the by agency tab and see the layers that we already shared to the Geoportal. For example, the Pag-asa, we have here the listings of the data na provide nila sa atin. So here on the upper left of the screen, we have access to the different modules or map apps na mentioned ko kanina. And we also have here the resources section where you can download the different user manuals as well as the Philippine Geoportal Data Inventory, which is the list of the layers currently uploaded to the portal, the agency na nag-share ng data, the name of the layer, its status, and the data restriction if it is downloadable or for viewing only. We also have here the list of our partner agencies. So we can see the 84 stakeholder agencies that provides the data to the portal. Now let me just show you the DRRM map app. So as you can see, we have here the map display, the topographic base map produced by NAMRIA. And on the left side of the screen, we have the DRRM data or what we call layers. So we have here the climate type, flood exit points, the possible evacuation centers, map of open spaces of Metro Manila, and the other hazard data or layers provided. So we can preview it or display it on our map by clicking a layer. For example, the flood hazard 1:50,000. After we click it on the left side of our screen, yeah, as we can see, the flood hazard layers is overlaid sa ating mapa. So it is added here on the bottom left. So for us to be able to make sense kung ano ba itong mga kulay na nakikita natin sa ating mga mapa, sa ating mapa, we have here the legend for that layer. So for the flood hazard 1:50,000, I'll just zoom in sa ating mapa. Again, you can zoom in, zoom out, or view the full scale of our map using your mouse pointer or by clicking the plus or minus button here on our screen. So the yellow part or the yellow areas here corresponds to low susceptibility to hazards. The purple is moderate susceptibility. And the darker or the red areas are the high susceptibility areas or the flood prone areas. So from this information, we can already see na ano ba yung mga areas or the area of interest natin na pag nagkaroon ng flooding, ma-identify natin and makakapag-prepare na tayo to be resilient to that kind of disaster. So we can load multiple hazards on our map. So we can try to load, for example, the active fault system. So you can see again, it's overlaid on our map, and we can see the extent of the active valley fault system shown here. So for us again to make sense, much more sense, yung mas maintindihan natin yung mga data, we can right-click a layer and click the View Metadata button. So ano ba yung metadata? The metadata is the data about the data. So para malaman natin kung para saan ba ito mga layers na to. So the active fault system is a data set, is a geohazard map showing the location of active faults. And in NCR or National Capital Region. So some of the layers of data are for specific locations or unless they are otherwise for the whole Philippines. So it depends on the data shared to us. So again, the valley fault system, it consists of the West Valley faults, East Valley fault, and other faults were mapped by the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. So this data came from PHIVOLCS. The purpose of this data set is to show the location of active faults in the National Capital Region that may cause ground rupture during earthquake for disaster risk management. So if magkaroon ng earthquake, pwedeng mag-rupture ito yung mga active fault system natin. So in relation to that, we also have the map of the open spaces areas. So again, para saan itong map of open spaces areas? So the purpose is, this is in support to the earthquake resiliency of the GMA area for the imminent threat of massive earthquake of 7.2 magnitude and intensity 8 ground shaking, commonly known as the big one. As you can see here on the legend, the yellow areas correspond to the large area or above 5,000 square meters. So if an earthquake of 7.2 magnitude comes our way, or yung tinatawag na the big one, ito yung mga areas, open spaces areas na pwede natin puntahan. So we have the large, which is the yellow portion of our map, the medium, yung mga pink areas, and yung small, itong parang turquoise area. So we also have the data on possible evacuation centers, which is usually yung ating mga public elementary schools. So for planners or decision makers, pwede natin magamit itong ating BRI map for decision making. So as you can see on the screen, we overlaid the hazard maps, flood hazard map, as well as the possible evacuation centers, which is in public elementary school, and we can easily see or visualize those evacuation centers or the public elementary schools na lulubog or prone to flooding. So again, we can designate those possible evacuation centers based on this map. So we also have other options here to change the base map. So by default, the Geoportal Philippines uses the NAMRIA topographic base map, but we also have the option to use the base map, like for example, NAMRIA auto image, NAMRIA auto rectified radar image. You can also use Bing maps, ArcGIS online, OpenStreetMap, and you can also use the Google Maps satellite imagery as a background sa ating mapa. As I mentioned earlier, we also have some basic geoprocessing tools. So we can measure an area or measure the distance from point A to point B. So we can digitize a polygon in our map. For example, this one, we just digitize or trace the polygon, and it will display the result in different units of measure here below. So we can also measure the distance from point A to point B by clicking the distance option. For example, the straight distance from this school to the active fault. And again, it will display the result in different units of measure, in kilometers, meters, miles, or feet. For those advanced users, o yung mga nag-GIS sa atin, we can use the go to XY function to zoom in on a specific location in our map. So all we have to do is
Recording in progress.
na in-specify natin. We also have the buffer function where you can create a buffer from a point, line, circle, or polygon. For example, we can draw a line from this active fault, and we can supply in the distance, for example, 5 kilometers from that line, and click the buffer button, and it will create a buffer from the line that we created. And we can also use that to generate a buffer for point, circle, or a polygon. And we can also export our map or current map view in image format. For example, if you want to use it in your report or in your presentation purposes. I forgot to mention, we can also identify a specific feature in our map or the layers currently loaded on our map. For example, this school, we can click it and it will display the additional attribute or the attribute ng point na sinalik ko. So for this one, we had address, the school name, region, division, its province, and municipality. So same goes for the hazard layers. You can also click onto the polygon, it display its attribute. So again, the red polygon corresponds to high or moderate or high susceptibility to flooding. So from here, we can turn on or turn off the layers in our map by ticking or unticking the checkbox beside the layer. So we can also adjust the opacity of the layer on our map para makita natin yung features underneath it. So for the flood hazard, we can adjust the slider for us to be able to see the features underneath that polygon. So as I mentioned earlier, in coordination with Pag-asa, they provided us the data on typhoon na pumasok sa ating Philippine Area of Responsibility. So as you can see, we have here this polygon, which is the Philippine Area of Responsibility. So every time na magkakaroon ng typhoon, the data will be consumed from Pag-asa. So real-time, this is real-time data. Every time na pumasok sa Philippine Area of Responsibility, mag-a-update yung ating mapa. So we have here the legend. Again, this is from Pag-asa. So this is the legend for the super typhoon, severe tropical storm, tropical depression, or the low pressure area. So we can mouse over sa points kung makikita natin yung location ng typhoon at a given day. Ayan. So currently, today, June 30, ito na yung current location ng typhoon Kalon. So we can also determine the possible affected areas na dadaanan ng typhoon. So for presentation purposes, I just overlaid here the previous typhoon data, which is Odette and Niato. So we can load the municipal population data, and we can select a specific point or location nung naganap yung or nung pagdaan ng typhoon. For example, on December 16, 11 a.m., if we click that point, it will display the possible or threatened population based on the population data na niload natin sa ating map, which is the municipal population for 2015. So as you can see, it lists the municipalities na naapektuhan during that day. So we have here the region name, the municipality, the total population for that municipality, and the affected population. So for those na sakop talaga ng ating a buffer zone, so 100% of its population will be affected. But for those na nahagip lang or not the entire polygon nung area nila na tinamaan ng buffer area is naka-specify din dito kung ilang percentage ng population ang possible or pwedeng maapektuhan ng typhoon. And again, we have the total population and the total of the threatened or might be affected na population. And we can export this to Excel format. Just please note po, we're still coordinating with Pag-asa for the actual buffer zone for each, ito po yung ating Excel file na pwede nating export. And again, we're still coordinating with Pag-asa para po dito sa exact measure of the buffer area na pwede natin nga maklik kasi as mentioned by Pag-asa, it differs from typhoon to typhoon. So again, once we get the data, we can always view the Geoportal Philippines DRR map app to preview yung typhoon na pumasok na sa ating Philippine area of responsibility. So right now, ito yung sa atin si Typhoon Kaloy. And also using the DRR map app, we can also view the earthquake data. Again, this is real-time data, and we're consuming the data from the USGS website. So we can display the earthquake data from the past hour, past day, past 7 days, or even the earthquake data for the past month. All we have to do is select an option here and then click the OK button and wait for the earthquake data to appear on our map. So as you can see, it displays this data. For example, this one, if I click that point, is magnitude 4.4, 50 kilometers. It is northeast of Santa Monica, Philippines, place and date and time of that earthquake. As I mentioned earlier, you can also display other data. For example, we also have the Ondoy flood height data. So we can right-click to that layer and zoom to the extent. So ito po yung historical data ng time na din natin yung Typhoon Ondoy. And NAMRIA dispatched a team to collect this data. Na as you can see on our map, nung nagkaroon tayo ng bagyong Ondoy, these areas, the darker areas, the red areas, as much as 3.2 to 6 meters po yung baha during Typhoon Ondoy. So given this data, makakapag-prepare na po tayo. For example, sa area na ito, they can make the necessary preparations or mas maging resilient sila. Kasi alam na nila na binabaha yung lugar nila and the other hazards na maybe maka-apekto sa lugar nila. So, yeah. So again, you can load multiple layers, and ito po mga data na ito is hindi siya static. So every time na magkaroon ng new data yung ating mga stakeholder agencies, we always contact them to the team of Sir Aljerico Alcala for them to always upload or update their data para maipakita or ma-share natin sa general public, for the general public to be able to access this data for them to be more disaster resilient. So I think that's it. So again, I hope this webinar somehow helps you na masagot yung questions natin na saan tayo makakakuha ng mga information or mga mapa para ma-prepare tayo in times of disasters. So again, isang mapagpalang umaga po sa ating lahat. And back to you, Sir Andrew.
Okay, maraming salamat Sir Melvin for that comprehensive presentation. So nasabi nga ni Sir Jeff kanina, no? So again, paumanhin po sa nagkakaroon po kami ng konting siguro difficulties when it comes to our internet connection. Okay? So but do not fret kung may mga siguro mga bits and pieces po tayo na hindi nakuha doon sa ating presentation, no? Kasi actually hindi ko alam kung nabanggit ito ni Sir Melvin kanina, meron pong mga manual na makikita po tayo doon sa ating Geoportal Philippines. So again, as what I have mentioned, makikita o ma-access po natin itong Geoportal Philippines sa address po na web address which is geoportal.gov.ph. Okay? So ayun, pinapakita po ni Sir Melvin ngayon, no? So para po ma-access natin yung mga manuals, paano i-access yung ganitong feature, paano galawin or i-manipulate yung DRRM map app sa ating Geoportal Philippines, ang gagawin lang po natin is i-click natin once na na-open po natin yung Geoportal Philippines map app, i-click po natin ng tatlong linya sa doon po sa top left portion po ng ating screen at lalabas po doon yung resources. Sa resources po, pag kinlik po natin yan, doon po lalabas yung mga manuals natin sa lahat ng mga applications na nakapaloob po sa Geoportal Philippines. Okay? So, maganda po na i-explore natin yan, basahin po natin yan so that on your own, malalaman po natin paano nga ba magpa-function, paano ba pag gusto kong gawin itong isang feature na ito, paano gusto kong i-overlay. So nakikita po natin sa screen ngayon, no? So very comprehensive and then step-by-step procedure po talaga yung pinapakita natin for Geoportal Philippines. And na-discuss din nga kanina ni Sir Melvin, no, na yung meron tayong very specific portion yung DRRM map app, no. So maraming layers na very useful not just for local government units but also for the national government agencies and of course sa ating mga estudyante, sa mga members po ng ating academia. Nakita ko sa presentation ni Sir Melvin, no, so marami siyang mga features ng ating DRRM map app na ipinakita. Meron about earthquake, saan ba yung mga active faults sa buong Pilipinas, yung mga flooding hazards, tsunami, landslide, liquefaction, and evacuation centers, of course, di ba? So maganda yan, i-overlay mo lang kunyari, i-activate mo kunyari yung layers sa flooding, and then i-activate mo din yung mga evacuation centers. So if ever na, for example, may flooding hazard tayo na mangyari, saan nga bang mga areas yung maaaring mag-evacuate yung mga tao? Siyempre, based ito sa mga datos natin, no, from the other agencies na nagko-contribute para po dito sa ating Geoportal Philippines. Okay, so again, geoportal.gov.ph. Feel free po mga kababayan para po i-explore po natin yung ating Geoportal Philippines. Okay? So I think at this point, maaari po natin i-open na yung floor for your questions and answers. And our answers, of course, to your question. But at this juncture, as what Sir Melvin has said a while ago, we will be joined by one of our experts sa Geoportal Philippines. Aside kay Sir Melvin, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Aljerico Alcala. Si Sir Aljerico ay isa sa mga Information Technology Officers 2 namin dito sa NAMRIA. He is from the Geospatial Database Management Division ng aming GISMB. So good morning, Sir Jeric. And I think so far, I have only one question, but I think before that, pwede ko pong i-answer, i-ask ko muna yung isa sa mga nag-question sa atin sa YouTube. I'm looking at the YouTube chat box right now. It's a question from Miss Asinad. I think Danica ito in reverse. Paano daw po mag-search ng control points sa Geoportal?
Okay, magandang umaga po ulit. May buntag sa tanan. Punta po tayo sa layer. Kung if you have your computer with you, tapos pumunta po tayo sa ating web address sa www.geoportal.gov.ph, and I think Sir Melvin is demonstrating it. Tapos pumunta po, actually it can be shown on the screen and it's currently shown on the screen. Tapos yun, dun sa search field, itatype nyo po yung geodetic control. Tapos andyan na po, makakapamili po kayo kung anong gusto nyo po. Meron tayong geodetic stations from tier 1 to tier 3. Tapos meron tayong, if you're particular with geodetic control points, nandoon din po. Okay, na ipapakita ng Sir Melvin, including its attribute, saan yung particular location. Andyan po ang sana po nasagot namin. So that's how fast and easy to navigate using the Geoportal Philippines main viewer. So ganun lang po kasimple, kaya hindi po kayo mahihirapan. Depende din po sa internet service provider nyo kung gaano kabilis ito. At kung meron mang mga problema, siguro po dahil sa internet connection na available sa lugar po ninyo. Sana po nasagot si Ma'am Danica. Good morning po uli.
Okay, Sir Jeric, may kadagdagan po akong katanungan.
Ano
So
po
this
yun?
is from RPMES Cordillera Administrative Region. So
Okay.
tinatanong po ni Sir or ni Ma'am, ano-ano nga daw pong mga agencies yung required na mag-submit ng data sa ating Geoportal? And pangalawang question po, ano-ano nga ba yung mga required? Kunyari gusto daw po nilang mag-submit or mag-provide ng data sa ating Geoportal Philippines, ano-ano daw po yung mga requirements na meron tayo?
Okay. Pinapakita po natin if you're in your computer again and then on the page sa ating Geoportal Philippines main viewer, pinapakita ni Sir Melvin ang ating mga current partners, no, sa Geoportal Philippines. Kung napapansin niyo po, mula sa academe, papunta sa mga local government units, papunta sa mga government offices, papunta sa ating mga national government agencies. So, kung nasa kategorya po kayo dyan, ay maari po kayo magiging partner ng Geoportal Philippines. All you have to do is to signify your intentions or desire to become partner sa ating Geoportal Philippines. And we will be sending you the necessary documents. Una-una niyan is the data sharing agreement. Tapos, merong mga annexes doon defining kung paano nyo po ibabahagi sa publiko, sa general public, yung mga datos ninyo para mapapakinabangan din po nila. Ganun lang po kasimple. Pagpadala po kayo ng intention nyo or desire to join sa Geoportal Philippines. Gusto ko lang pong i-remind sa inyo kung nais nyo po talaga, bigyan nyo po kami ng mobile numbers nyo, hindi lang po email. Para mas madali po yung pagtatawagan o yung coordination activity natin. Minsan kasi sa email, dahil sa marami tayong ginagawa, nakakaligtaan natin. We suggest that there should be a mobile number na active po, na madali kayo may contact. Available po yung aming personal na mobile at saka yung official na contact namin.
Okay, Sir Jeric, may question pa po tayo. No? Galing po kay Sir Shelon Kadawas.
Yes, sir.
Si Sir kasamahan po
welcome
natin.
back. Nice to hear from you, Sir Silon.
Ito po yung
We miss
question,
you.
Sir Jeric, ni
Yes, sir.
Sir Shelon. So one of the challenges to make geospatial information more useful is to have information updated and maintained regularly. So
Yes,
how
sir.
do NAMRIA solve this challenge?
Okay. Una-una, meron po tayong estratehiya, no, patukol dyan. Actually, isang issue din po yan. So, dahil wala naman tayong capacity to sanction sa ating mga ahensya ng gobyerno, tayo po ay nakikiusap through constant coordination. Actually, every year po ay nakikipag-communicate po kami sa ating mga data provider, no? Nasa kanila pong mga kamay ang pagbabahagi ng kanilang mga importanteng datos, no? Mahalagang data nila upang mahibahagi at ma-inform ang ating general public. So ang ginagawa lang po namin, nakaplano po yan na every year nagpapadala po kami nagko-conduct po kami ng coordination activity. Tinitingnan po namin yung datos nila doon sa metadata kasi nandun sa data lineage o history ng kanilang data kung kailan po na ipadala sa Geoportal. So kung medyo matagal na, ay tinatawagan po namin. Pero ang isang malinaw na plano ay every year po pinapadalhan po namin sila ng invitation of ang dami yung ating mga coordinators. May kanya-kanyang nakatokang coordinators for tayo sa ating Geoportal Philippines data team from Geospatial Database Management Division. So sigurado po yon. Ang problema lang, may kunting challenge lang tayo on the reply and responses. Hindi lang sa doon sa pag-ipag-usap, kundi talagang sa actual na pagbibigay for us to collect the data. At tuloy-tuloy po yung ating coordination kasi mahalaga nga po, tama si engineer, si Sir Celon, na mahalaga po talaga yung isang updated o laging bagong data, no? Kasi baka masyado ng paso yung data, di ba? So, sana po engineer, Sir Celon, na nasagot po namin yung katanungan ninyo. Yun po yung aming estratehiya.
Okay po, Sir Jeric. May question po si Ms. Monique Morales. For ground shaking daw po, yung data po ba na nasa Geoportal Philippines ngayon ay for Metro Manila lamang or mas malaki yung area yung coverage niya?
Okay, papakita lang ni Sir Melvin, no? Kung napapansin nyo, siguro ipapakita mo yung kabuuan. Although nandoon naman sa data description, hindi lang po sa Metro Manila. Tingnan natin yung data ground shaking, sir. Okay. Okay. So ang ating ground shaking ay nasa under po ito ang collaboration project with NAMRIA and other government agencies, nakatutok lang po sa Greater Metro Manila area. Ayon po sa description natin. Nais ko lang po ibahagi na ang mga datos natin ay galing po sa mga mandated agencies. So ini-encourage ko rin po kayo na hindi lamang sa Geoportal, ang puntahan nyo po yung ating mga mandated agency relating to a specific hazard. Like for example, sa ground shaking, I think ang Philippine yung PHIVOX po. So maaring mas may malawak na coverage ang PHIVOX. Dito po, kaya nagkaroon ang data ang NAMRIA dahil sa pagbabahagi natin mga mandated agency under the GMMA RED project.
Okay po. So may karagdagang katanungan, may follow-up question daw po ang RPMES CAR.
Yes,
Sir
sir.
Jeric.
Yes,
So
ma'am. Yes.
in the Geoportal inventory daw po, how often are data restrictions updated? Is there a push towards more open data access for the public?
I am glad to, this is good news to everyone, no? Ongoing po yung ating data policy, open data policy. Itong endeavor namin. Kasi ninanais po namin na kung maaari po, kung mapapakinabangan ng pangkalahatan na mamamayan ng Pilipino upang maililigtas yung kanilang ari-arian at mga buhay nila, ay nais namin na ibahagi na walang mga pasubali, no? Kung hindi lang naman magtitreat yan sa ating national sovereignty, ibahagi yan. So, yan po ang effort, yung ongoing effort ng NAMRIA na open data policy. Open na ito, no? Maaring ang iba, meron pa mga konting restriction to that data that would threaten the national sovereignty. But ito ang direksyon namin, magiging open po ang ating mga datos para sa ikaunlad ng bayan po. So, yun po ang good news para sa lahat ng mga nandito po. Hindi lamang sa CAR yung mga kauban nako, mga kababayan nako diyan sa Visayas ug Mindanao, mao na po na ang among ginahimo karon. So, aduna nay progress, there is an ongoing progress of that open data policy.
Okay, maraming salamat Sir Jeric. Si Sir Max Quijano po ay may question din po. So if there are maps that are generated by using this Geoportal Philippines, is there a prescribed way for citation or attribution? So maganda po itong tanong na to para sa ating mga researchers po, no?
Meron tayong metadata yan, nandun po yung ating pagbabanggit o pagbibigay po ng due credit sa mga data provider po. Nandyan po sa ating metadata. So kung yan, well, we are giving due credit po sa kung sino po ang data source or data provider ng ating mga data po. Andyan po sa kung napapansin, dinidemonstrate ni Sir Melvin na yung ground shaking under GMMA was provided by VBOX, DOST.
Okay po. So may question naman po from Marion Tino, si Sir Marion. Ay parang kilala ko si Sir Marion. Ano? So how different daw
umaga
po yung Geoportal Philippines with that of the GeoRisk ng
Okay.
PBOX?
Okay. Nais kong ibahagi na may pagkakaiba po ang GeoRisk PH at saka Geo Philippines o Geoportal Philippines, no? Ganito lang babanggitin, magkaiba po yung platform, no? While ang GeoRisk PH ang platform po na is focus more on the hazards, no? Ang Geo PH or Geoportal Philippines ay general platform po siya sa lahat ng spatial information na napuproduce ng ating mga opisina ng gobyerno, ng ating mga local government units na nais magbahagi ng kanilang geospatial data. Kung napapansin nyo po, hindi lang po hazard information ang nasa Geoportal Philippines. Lahat po ng pwedeng imapa ng mga statistical data. So, nandyan po lahat. Ang nais ko lang din i-inform ang general public na ang ginagamit po, ano ba ang naibabahagi ng NAMRIA through the Geoportal Philippines doon sa GRSPH? Ang GRSPH, while ang focus nila is on the hazards, ang pinagpapatungan po nila, yung pinagbabasyan nila ay basyang mapa mula po sa NAMRIA. Ito po yung topographic data o topographic information. So, kung wala po itong impormasyon na ito, ay medyo malilihis o parang nakalutang lang sa hangin ang mga lahat ng mga thematic layers relating to disaster resilience. So yun po ang maituturing ko na isang malaking kontribusyon ng NAMRIA sa anumang aspeto ng pagmamapa ng lahat ng sakuna o posibleng sakuna dito sa bayan po sa Pilipinas. Particularly GeoRisk.ph at iba pang mga disaster-related o disaster resilience related web app or map applications. NAMRIA po na base map ang ginagamit natin. Official po yun. The NAMRIA base map.
Okay.
At hindi lamang po information o baseline data from NAMRIA po. At pinamamahagi po namin sa kanila iyan. At yun ang maituturing kong isang mahalaga at napakalaking kontribusyon ng NAMRIA upang maipapalaganap ang isang matalino at pagpapabahagi na impormasyon upang mailigtas ang ating mga kababayan sa anumang panganib. So, yun po ang ating masasabi, no?
Okay po, Sir Jeric. So, I think I can entertain, marami pa yata tayong oras, no? So, guess go lang tayo sa mga questions, Sir Jeric. So, may tanong din po si Sir J.M. Tolentino. How to register po sa GP Map App Builder? Naghahanap po kasi ito ng passcode.
Okay. Nasabi ko na nga po kanina kung if you desire to become one of the partners of Geoportal Philippines, you send us that desire or intention by writing our administrator, and then we will provide you access. Mas mainam po siguro kung kayo ay connected sa isang organization. Sa ngayon wala pa tayong feature for crowdsourcing, Sir Melvin, ano? Wala pa tayo sa crowdsourcing, no? Ang ina-encourage natin is dapat belong ka sa isang legitimate na organization. You signify or you write us the letter addressed to our administrator, and we will invite you to be one of the partners of our Geoportal Philippines.
Okay, Sir Jeric. So si Sir Max Quijano ay may kadagdagang katanungan po. So
Yes,
is it possible to overlay data from large data and sound simulations or best typhoon tracks?
Medyo malalim na kasagutan, pero ang naipakita namin is a simple overlay analysis, no? ito naman ay nais kong ipamahagi na hindi to full GIS software ang Geoportal Philippines, no? This is a platform where it is a cataloging system at merong mga special map apps. Pero hindi po ito tumatapat o nagre-replace sa ating full GIS platform. So ang may papakita lang po namin is simple GIS overlay analysis using Geoportal Philippines system. Pag malaking data na po, medyo kailangan na po natin ng full GIS application system. Pero pag simple lang kasi maapektuhan din po yung ibang application ng ating Geoportal Philippines.
Okay po. A question from Sir Joel Tangunan. Good morning, sir. Can we be able or can we monitor the typhoon, for example, real time? And do you have updated data of active faults in other places than NCR? Thank you.
Sa ngayon, ang masasabi ko po, ang ating mga datos patungkol po doon sa real-time data would be coming from, kung sa typhoon po yan, sa Pag-asa. Kung related po yan sa paggalaw ng lupa, sa PHIVOX po yon. So meron naman tayong mga coordination. Kagaya ngayon, dinidemonstrate ni Sir Melvin dahil nagbigay ng link sa amin ng Pag-asa na ipapakita namin on real time yung kasalukuyang nangyayari, yung Typhoon Kaloy, no? Yan, ipapakita. Yung ibang datos, like for example sa paggalaw o sa faults, Sir Melvin, medyo static siya kasi hindi pa na-update o naayos yung link between NAMRIA and DOST PHIVOX. Pero sa ngayon, ang ating ipapakita pa lamang po ay ang Pag-asa. Pero ongoing po ang ating mga coordination activity with other expert agency relating to yan. So medyo nakatutok lang po dyan dahil yun lang po ang naibabahagi sa amin ng ating mandated agency.
Okay, Sir Jeric. So si Jeffrey Aguilion, parang kilala ko tong si Jeffrey Aguilion. May question po siya, no? Paano daw po, Sir Jeric, pag may maling data like yung street names po, paano daw po ito ire-report sa Geoportal Philippines?
Okay. Maraming kaparaanan, no? Una-una po, pero nais kong banggitin na meron tayong data quality procedure, no? Data quality validation procedure, no? Pero dahil yung mga impormasyon nung patungkol sa mga names, sa mga topo names, nanggagaling po yan sa LGU, no? O kay sa ating National Archive yata. So sila po ang pinanggagalingan noon. Pwede nyo pong isulat, no? Kung kayo po yung taga-LGU, kayo pong nakakaalam sa exact name na inyong lugar. Pwede po kayong pumunta doon sa ating may feedbacking mechanism po ang Geoportal Philippines. Kayo po magsabi, CSU NAMRIA, mali po yung pangalan ng aming kalye dito sa lugar namin. Ito po yung tama. So ibabalidate po namin iyan. Bago po namin baguhin yan, ibabalidate po natin sa ating mga mandated agency or office that provide us the official name. Kasi maaring nabago nyo na, nakagawa kayo ng resolution na ito na yung pangalan ng inyong mga kalye o daanan, pero hindi nyo pa na isasubmit sa mandated o agency na authorized na magbigay talaga ng official name. Yun po yung mga proseso. Kahit nakagawa po na po kayo ng barangay or city or provincial resolution, dapat na i-elevate po ito sa national level. Na? Tsaka lang po namin babaguhin. But we will promptly reply po at yun po ang isasagot namin. Na kung meron na kinabahaging city or municipal resolution o anumang resolution yan, ibahagi po, isubmit nyo sa national level. I think the ILG would accommodate that and maybe the ILG would supply that information.
Okay po. So another question, Sir Jeric, from
Yes,
Ms.
sir.
Cora, si Ms. Corazon Factuar. May available daw po ba ng list in times of evacuation? I mean, yung mga locations siguro ng mga evacuation areas?
Naipakita kanina, Sir Melvin, sa ngayon, meron tayong potential evacuation centers. Diyan po, possible evacuation centers. Ito po yung school lamang, pero maliban po doon, ang alam ko po na meron tayong protocol na ino-observe kasi uma-attend din po ako ng pre-disaster PIDRA, no? Pre-disaster risk analysis. Meron hindi na po masyadong in-encourage na ang mga school natin ang gagawing evacuation center. So we've been coordinating with DSWD and DILG and OCD para mabigyan tayo ng updated na evacuation center talaga. Hindi lang itong ating mga public schools, no? Kasi nasasakripisyo din kung may klase ang mga bata. So hanggang ngayon po ongoing pa rin yung coordination kahit nga po sa hanay ng NDRRMC, hindi pa rin na fully update yung mga evacuation center po.
Okay, so may tanong din po tayo galing kay Sir Paul Verbo. Sir, good morning daw po. Can you please show to us, sir, the right way in using this data from Geoportal to ArcGIS using WMTS URL? Minsan kasi, sir, parang may bug kasi, sir, or mali lang talaga yung process ko.
Okay po. Okay. Uulitin namin only the methods or process or the procedure po o utilizing yung Geoportal ay nandito po sa ating resources. Nandyan po pinapakita ni Sir Melvin.
Sir, if I may add, and yung sa instructions on how to utilize or access the layers.
Hinahinay.
Hello?
Sorry.
Yeah, so yung instructions on how to access the layers can be found in the Geoportal website in the resources section and how to connect and consume the PGS layers in ArcGIS. Hindi ko lang ma-show ngayon kasi walang ArcGIS tong unit na ginagamit ko. But if you still encounter some problems, you can always email us or you can directly email me para ma-solve natin, sir, if meron po bang errors pa rin kayo na na-experience in accessing the layers through ArcGIS WMS. I-provide na lang siguro sa yung email ko din.
Yes, sir. If I may, paki-screen capture po para medyo mas malinaw yung error na encounter nyo in consuming Geoportal Philippines data using ArcGIS.
Yung screenshot nga po para mas madali troubleshoot yung problem.
Yes.
Okay, so another question po. I think we have time until 11 to entertain questions, Sir Jeric. No? So a question from Sir Raymond Villapa. Good morning, Sir Jericho. Si Emon po ito from our hydrography branch from POD siya, sir. No? Meron po bang equivalent mobile app for Android and iOS itong Geoportal Philippines?
Okay, si Sir Melvin kasi is more on the system, no? So Geoportal Philippines system. So Sir Melvin po ang authorized person to reply sa katanungan iyon.
Yeah. Again, sir, good morning. To answer that question, currently the Geoportal Philippines has no native Android or iOS app as of the moment, but you can still access the Geoportal Philippines in your cell phone, sir, using your browser, and the Geoportal Philippines is device agnostic, so mabibili niyo pa rin siya using your mobile's browser po. But currently we still don't have the native Android and iOS application.
Okay po, maraming salamat, Sir Melvin. Last two questions po tayo for this morning. Galing po ito kay Ms. Purcell Jade Aguilion. Okay, so do you conduct public information dissemination in coordination with different local government units?
Sa ngayon po, naka-limit lang yung ating pero there was a suggestion na dahil nauuso na ang virtual, no? So we would i-join namin yung activity o i-align namin sa ganung activities. Sa ngayon na hindi pa namin, siguro magpatulong kami sa ating GISD, yung IEC kay Sir Jeff at saka kay Ma'am Celeste o Ma'am Eteng, no? Doon sa IEC with LGUs on disseminating information relating to hindi lang sa disaster resilience, sa lahat ng pwedeng paggamitan ng mga datos na meron tayo sa Geoportal Philippines. Pero meron din tayong mga ongoing involvement sa bawat LGU. Actually, ang direction namin ngayon ay hindi na lamang sa ating mga government offices at saka agencies. We are gearing towards LGUs po. Actually, meron na tayong precedents. Merong 4 tayo na probinsya through Asian Foundation, Sir Melvin, if correct me, no? Magkasama kami ni Sir Melvin. We've been coordinating through Asian Foundation. Sila po ang nagli-link sa amin sa mga LGUs talaga. So isa yan sa mga channel namin para makapag-go down the levels at sa ating mga local government units. Meron din tayong active involvement sa ating Gawad Kalasag. Ito yung national validation team ng pag-i-implement ng best practice on disaster resilience. So isa po ako sa mga national validators at we go down the level po sa barangay. So doon pa lang ipapalaganap namin at nakakatuwa na nakikita natin yung mga produkto ng NAMRIA na gagamit nila doon sa aktual na pagbabantay ng kanilang pagtaas ng tubig sa karagatan, no? So nakakatuwa po. Meron pa rin pa tayong yun, mga ongoing. Meron tayong LGU GIS capability system, no? Ito rin sa mga channel na nakikipag-communicate, nakikipag-coordinate tayo upang malaman natin kung ano pa ang mga pangangailangan ng mga local government units natin doon sa GIS technology, no? Kasi mandato ng NAMRIA upang ma-educate, ma-empower ang ating mga local government units sa aspeto ng teknolohiyang ito upang hindi lang sa disaster resilience kundi lahat na upang maiangat ang kanilang kabuhayan. So ito po yung mga channels of involvements ng NAMRIA with the local government units po.
Okay, so I think last two questions na lang tayo, Sir Jeric. No?
Yes, sir.
A question po from Joe N. Sekuban. Magandang umaga po. Protected po ba ang mga data sa Geoportal sa mga hackers? Salamat po.
Sir Melvin, I think si Sir Boyet from GICTD, no, kung kasama po natin. Actually, meron tayong mga firewalls at iba pang mga mga paraan upang maprotektahan from data thief, no? Si Sir Melvin, do you have something to share about data protection on data thief or hacking?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sir, basically, lahat po ng mga security protocols and like Sir Jericho mentioned, we have firewalls and layers of protection para po yung mga data natin talaga is safe from hackers po. So yung mga current securities na inamin natin po is up to standard po. So talagang very minimal po minimal or up to no risk na maano po yung data natin. Kasi ini-ensure nga po ng ating JCTD division na secure and safe po yung mga data na currently at yung mga i-upload pa sa Geoportal Philippines. Thank you po.
Thank you,
Okay,
Sir Melvin. Thank you, Sir Boyet.
Last question po tayo for today. A question po from Miss Jonna Samonte. Is there any chance that we could download and access offline the Geoportal Philippines?
Sa offline, parang walang paraan. Pero online po, na-download ang ating mga data. Ngayon, gusto ko pong balikan, punta po tayo sa Geoportal main viewer, doon po sa resources. Andun po yung paraan. Makikita po natin ng mga data layers na naibahagi sa Geoportal Philippines at makikita po natin yung estado ng kanilang restriction. No? Doon po natin malalaman kung for full downloading, for conditional downloading. So, or at saka hindi siya downloading or for population lang nating Geoportal Philippines. So, tatlo po yan. So, sa full downloading po, signify lang, tapos bibigyan na kaagad kayo ng link or password, no, upang ma-download yung data. Sa conditional downloading po, madalas po ay sinabi ng ating mga data provider na sa kanila po kayo hihingi. So ang gagawin lang po namin, i-refer kayo o i-bridge namin kayo upang formal na ma-introduce namin kayo sa kanila. At sa pag-node, hindi po siya available for download, makikita lamang po sa Geoportal Philippines.
Ayan, to add lang po sa sinabi ni Sir Jericho, as I mentioned earlier, meron po tayong Philippine Geoportal Data Inventory that can be accessed through the resources section. And pag nandito na po tayo sa map viewer, we have here the download button. On the upper right of your screen, again, it displays a message that only the layers are downloadable as mentioned, and window restrictions are displayed. So kapag downloadable po yung data, makikita na po natin dito sa ating sa ating combo box po na pwede natin siyang i-add to our selection. So as you can see, I have multiple layers here, but only the female registered fisherman layer appears here in the download combo box. So again, check nyo sa data sharing agreement, and check nyo rin po pag click yung download button, mag-a-appear dito if downloadable yung ating data. Thank you po.
Okay, maraming salamat po sa ating mga resource persons. No, very fruitful yung ating naging discussion, ano. And i-reiterate ko lamang po, no, naging focus natin for this morning is yung DRRM map app, pero yung ating Geoportal Philippines, as mentioned by our resource speakers, marami pa pong mga ibang sectors or fields na naka-upload po ng mga map layers dito, no. So feel free to explore kasi nga po available po ito sa ating public. Okay? So maraming salamat po again sa ating mga resource persons for that very productive discussion that we had. And syempre pupunta na tayo sa closing, no? And to deliver the closing remarks for today's activity, I would like to call in the Assistant Director of the Geospatial Information System Management Branch, our Assistant Director Benjamin P. Balais. Okay, magandang umaga po, Adir Benji. Over to you, sir.
Okay, magandang umaga. Magandang umaga sa lahat. So I hope I'm coming in clear, loud and clear. Ganito lang. I would like to thank, of course, yung dalawang resource speaker natin for giving a comprehensive presentation dito sa ating Geoportal as applied to DRRM. Pero again, na-emphasize na rin naman kanina na kinumpara nga kanina sa GeoRisk. Strictly speaking, na-emphasize kanina na mas Geoportal is bigger kasi parang lumalabas GeoRisk Philippines is just a subset of the extent or coverage ng ating Geoportal. Kasi practically, going back to the objectives of the Geoportal, sabi nga natin, a data sharing platform for all the, hopefully, to include all the fundamental data sets coming from the specifically mandated agencies. That's the whole idea. So hindi lang DRRM. Given that parang ina-observe natin ang disaster matter or whatever, ang sa isang study na kinundak ng UNDP, ang title ng study is Climate Change Adaptation and Disaster Risk Reduction, Data Governance Study and Digital Readiness Strategy for the Philippines. In-identify lahat doon, lahat ng mga computer systems, hindi lang websites, pati mga apps relating to disaster management. And lumalabas na ang Geoportal sa apat na stages o apat na phases ng disaster risk reduction and management na nabanggit ni Andrew kanina. Parang nasa presentation and mitigation and preparedness, parang sa planning. Kasi lumalabas din doon sa study na yun, sa survey nung study na yan. Yung Philippine Geoportal, kasi ang sa study nila, ano yan parang may apat na ang LGUs, ang in-interview nila. Okay? And doon sa kanilang study, based doon sa respondents ng LGUs, which is very, very normal naman at natural, na binibisita pagdating sa pre-disaster, pati yung sabihin na natin actual event na, yung disaster na talaga, yung during, and then yung post-disaster or yung after-disaster, ang talagang binibisita niyan, lalo na kung bagyo, yung pag-asa. And also PBOS, lalo na kung may mga volcanic eruptions. Ang Geoportal is way down, parang number 7 pa. Ang ganda ng study kasi talagang pinakita yung interconnection nitong mga studies na to. And then to answer din yung question kanina, just to add, tungkol dun sa ano yung ginagawa na step na NAMRIA to introduce itong Geoportal na to. This is exactly one of them. Itong ganitong webinar and then naka-upload sa YouTube. So sabi nga natin, very accessible naman ng YouTube. Yung usual na sinasabi, I hope you can, natawag dito, click on the like button and then click on subscribe and then pass it on siguro sa sa mga kakilala nyo if you like the presentation, and then possibly subscribe, di ba? Para you will always be keep posted doon sa kung ano yung mga materials na pinoproduce namin, and believe me, marami pang plano. The same thing dito sa portal. This is a continuing process. Sabi nga gusto kong ipaalam sa kung meron takeaway doon sa mga sinabi kanina. It's a continuing process. We're trying to identify yung mga applications pa na gusto ng public. So I encourage you to provide us feedback para dito sa improvement ng portal. Kasi ang idea is talaga, ano ba yung gusto ng public, the general public. So you can write your comments dito, and possibly we could hopefully we could pick up some para relevant na suggestions that we could further develop yung ating portal. And then sa issue ng open data, yung binanggit kanina na open data ni Jeric, yung open data policy is only true for NAMRIA. Ang challenge sa the whole of government bureaucracy is to adapt yung open data. That's the only way na lalaki itong portal. As it is right now, ako, I could probably say na bilib ako dun sa portal, given as it is yung GUI, yung dali ng paggamit, andyan lahat yan. Pero any system is only as good as the data it contains. So, nabanggit din kanina na wala kaming strictly control dun sa data na i-upload. It's up to the owners of the data sets to upload their fundamental data or not. And then in terms of accuracy, yung pag-update, yung quality ng information, it's really up to the process owners then, do sa data owners, do sa mandated agencies. Sila pa rin yung may control doon. All we could offer is to publish it sa Geoportal and hopefully to give the public an access to this portal. Again, ang ultimate objective is an open data wherein you could download yung mga information with very minimal restrictions. Ginagawa namin sa NAMRIA, we're starting to adapt yung open data. Pero the question is, ano ginagawa nung mga on the side of the stakeholders ng NAMRIA? Are they willing to adapt yung open data? Ako, yung mga previous administrations na natin, yan, nagpalit na ang ating president. Si President Aquino, talaga nag-push siya ng open data. Si President Duterte yung FOI. And I hope i-continue talaga ng presidency ni BBM, ni President Marcos Jr., na talagang i-adapt yung open data at saka yung freedom of information para talaga, sabi ni Jerry kanina, kailangan mapakinabangan ng general public. Yun yung question on the side of the stakeholders. Now, sa side naman ng ordinary users or the general public is for you to suggest kung ano yung gusto nyong makita dito sa portal. And of course, it takes a lot of effort to address yung mga concerns na yan. Pero we would like to prioritize kung ano talaga yung what does the public want? What do the public want? So we have to prioritize kung ano talaga yung namin. And it's a continuing development. We're not stopping yung dito sa mga available applications ngayon as it is right now. So tuloy-tuloy yung development yan. And a lot of the decisions we're making is coming from the general public. Sabi nga, client-oriented na NAMRIA, we have to identify yung needs and expectations ng client so that we could provide you a better service, pati yung mga products and services namin. So again, in closing, yun lang yung gusto kong sabihin. So we hope we all have a role to play kung ikagaganda itong Geoportal. So hindi kami titigil sa pag-develop nitong this very specific application. So back to you, Andrew. Thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in dito sa live stream na to.
Okay, maraming salamat po Assistant Director Benji Balais for that comprehensive closing remarks, no. So na-mention nga lang po ni Adir yung ultimate objective nga po nitong Geoportal Philippines is eventually ma-download ito, no, and then ma-access din ito ng ating general public with minimal restrictions. So indeed exciting times ahead tayo for the Geoportal Philippines, no. So i-look forward natin ito. Also, as mentioned by Adir Benji, i-promote ko na din lamang po siguro yung official YouTube channel po ng NAMRIA, which is yung sa NAMRIA. Kasi pwede po nang balikan yung mga videos po natin dito po sa ating YouTube channel ng agency. And mag-subscribe lamang po tayo at mag-like din po tayo sa mga video posts po natin para po ma-updated tayo sa mga information or mga videos or mga webinars na ipinopost po ng ating ahensya. Maraming salamat po. So I think Sir Jeff Codalo also mentioned na nag-post po siya ng link para po sa ating attendance sheet and IEC evaluation forms. The same forms will also be emailed doon po sa mga email addresses po na ginamit po nyo when you registered for this webinar. So again, paki-access na lamang po yung attendance sheet and evaluation forms na nai-post po sa ating chat box. I think the link to these forms will also be emailed to the email addresses that you used when you registered for this webinar. Okay, so this ends our activity for today. On behalf of our administrator, Yusek Peter and Tiangco, Director Febs, Adir Benji, our resource speakers, Sir Melvin and Sir Jeric, and the activity management team led by Mr. Jeffrey A. Codala, with assistance from Jeffrey Aguilion, Joyce Rueli Ferrer, and Erwin Famatiga. This has been Andrew Ramos, thanking you for attending NAMRIA's webinar for the 2022 National Disaster Resilience Month. Muli, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat and keep safe everyone. Bye-bye po.